A Little Luck by Argentinian author Claudia Pinheiro, translated from the Spanish into English by Frances Riddle, made me cry twice. Claudia Pinheiro wrote Elena Knows, which is a fantastic novel. Frances Riddle is at this point a legendary translator of South American literature into English, and this is published by my friends Charco Press, who are amazing. I've talked about them so much, and I will continue to do so forever. A Little Luck is now one of my favourite books that's been published in 2023. I am so stricken by the emotional power of this novel. It's a very literary novel that might confuse and frustrate people at first because it keeps a lot of things from the reader. When you first begin, you really don't know what's going on, and you need to hang in there for a little while. Our protagonist is a woman from Buenos Aires who has been living for the past 20 years in Boston, Massachusetts. She now goes by Mary Lohan, and her American husband Robert Lohan has recently died. For these 20 years, Mary has been working at a language school in Boston, and now she's heading back to Buenos Aires for work purposes, and she's absolutely terrified. She doesn't know what awaits her there. She hasn't returned in 20 years for some reason, and so we can assume early on that she was chased away by something. She had a reason to run, to flee Argentina, to head somewhere else and stay there. That's all we know at the beginning. And over the course of the first few dozen pages, we're eager to know more, to understand what's going on, and of course it does all eventually get revealed. The ways that it gets revealed are fantastic. There are wonderful twists, sudden revelations that come at the end of chapters that leave your jaw on the floor, and then the tears will start to come. I don't think Claudia Pinheiro is hiding the fact that she is drawing this feeling out for the first few dozen pages. And the reason I say that is because in between the first few chapters, there's this story that gets repeated and grows ever so slightly as the book goes on. At the very beginning, the first chapter is just a small paragraph on a page that describes a woman waiting in her car at a train crossing. The bell rings, the arm comes down, and she's waiting for a train to go across so that the arm will then go up and she will continue to drive over the tracks as it goes. That's all we know. A woman is sat waiting for this train to come past. And then we spend a few chapters with Mary and we learn what I've just told you. She's been living in Boston for 20 years and she's going back to Buenos Aires and she's scared. Then that little chapter comes back, but it's a bit longer now. We then learn that there are children in the car, 2 boys sitting in the back, and that's it. A few more chapters go by, she's on the plane to Buenos Aires, she talks to someone, she lands, she's nervous, and then that chapter comes back again. This time, the only detail that gets added is that these 2 boys are singing Itsy Bitsy Spider. That's it. This chapter continues to grow. It haunts us as the book goes on, and it's clearly haunting Mary as well. We learn pretty early on that Mary is not her name, it is an anglicization of her Spanish name, and tiny little revelations come, and then we return to this story, this woman waiting with 2 children at a train crossing. And we know that that's the thing, right? That has to be the thing. That's what scared her away. Something happened there. And train crossings are scary. You see it in films. For more than 100 years, we've seen stories set in those kinds of areas, and your mind starts to race about what this is. What happened in this moment? This woman at the train crossing must be Mary, and we know something bad is going to happen there. And that must be the thing that chased her away, that made her run. And your mind starts racing with fearful possibilities. And eventually you do learn the truth. And there is so much sorrow here. I will cry again just thinking about the revelations in this book and how they're handled, how they're explored, and what moves on from there. And I'm not going to talk about them here. I'm not going to spoil anything. I've said exactly as much as I want to say. But the thing about these revelations and the way that they're handled and what happens next, it's all so poignant and beautiful. There is dread in this book. There is an intense amount of fear and claustrophobia and nervousness and anxiety, but there's also a bit of hope that gets sprinkled in as the book goes on. As we learn more about Mary and we get her backstory and we get her life, we learn to love her and respect her. We feel for her. We will definitely struggle with feelings of anger and even hatred towards her, but we ultimately like her enough to continue standing by her as the narrative goes on. I am utterly amazed by the power of this, the strength, the intimacy, the emotional heft, the beauty of it. I cried halfway through and I cried again at the end. There is a staggering amount of weight here. This is a book about parenthood, about family ties, about family duty, about self-preservation to a point, but more about selflessness, or at least what we think selflessness looks like, what we think we're doing when we think we're being selfless, when we think we have a duty to people. In fact, duty comes across in lots of different ways in this book, in different places with different people. There is definitely a sense of duty, of trying to be the right person, do the right thing, make up for your mistakes. I've said a few times, I think, that Mary was running, and I'm not sure running is actually the right word, but you'll see as the book goes on. Claudia Pinheiro is an incredible Argentinian author, one of the best. I love the literature that comes out of Argentina right now, especially by its women writers. Selva Almada, Mariana Enriquez, Agustina Bastarrica, and Claudia Pinheiro, they are all such incredible Argentinian women authors doing amazing things. She is so powerful. Her ways of writing literary stories, it's crushingly, painfully beautiful. And Frances Riddle has carried all of that weight, all of that emotional heft into English with so much poise and delicacy, but also an intense density to the weight, to the language. It's incredible. If you've already read Elena Knows, you know that Claudia Pinheiro enjoys examining family relationships, especially those between mothers and their children, and that is what we get here as well, in a different way, from a different angle, but it's still about motherhood. And it's so, so painful and beautiful. If you love to cry, if you love to feel, if you love to connect with stories in a really painfully powerful way, you need to check out this book. A Little Luck is incredible. One of the most beautiful literary novels I have ever read. Go read it, support Charco Press, support amazing Latin American books in translation. This is awesome. And subscribe for books.